Hello and welcome back to the channel. We are going to be getting started with our new React/response/discussion, whatever video series that we're going to be doing. I'd like to start today with this video from ObsidianAnt about the new Powerplay 2 feature that's coming up in Elite Dangerous. We're going to watch it. I'll interject and talk a little bit about different things as things kind of pop into my mind, and we'll get through this. So here we go with our first video. We'll see how it goes.
Frontier have been adding quite a bit of content to Elite over the course of this year, and it's been great seeing it, as well as seeing their plans to the future for the title. Not only have they made a return to delivering new ships into the game, but also they have plans to enhance and overhaul elements of gameplay. It's a refreshing.
So new ships, I've said before that reskins of ships, new ships, yeah, kind of, sort of, but they're not new ships, and they're not new ships that are really stepping in to fill real new roles. They're just taking, I don't know. The only one I've heard of so far is the what you call it. The only one they've unveiled so far. Of course, as soon as I try to think about it, it doesn't pop into my brain anymore. It's not the Anaconda. It's the one right below that. It won't pop into my head. But you know what I mean. It's a reskin of a previous one that's going to have some different capabilities. And while, yeah, it's similar to the Phantom and versus the Crate, the Phantom versus the Mark II of the Crate series, it's just, you know, it's not that different, at least to me.
Refreshing change of pace. Whilst 2023 certainly saw its fair share of updates for Elite, 2024 has so far been quite a big step up. The next big update for the game, of course, is going to be the Powerplay overhaul, or as Frontier have previously termed it, a refresh. And we can see some of that on the screen right here that they showed on a recent live stream. Powerplay 2 then aims to improve a number of elements of the game and includes some mechanical changes such as the introduction of new fleet-sized locations which bring with them a variety of challenges, as well as visual changes and functional UI improvements.
So nothing I've heard so far about the Powerplay stuff particularly catches my interest, primarily because it's not one of those things that really, unless you're specifically looking for things that have to do with that, it's not something that's really required in the game. Outside of one or two specific items that you might want for a specific build that you might be doing, there's really no reason to even touch Powerplay. I did it once so I could get the prismatic shields, and then I haven't even thought about Powerplay ever since then. And if they want Powerplay to be one of those things that people really take seriously and make it something that they seriously want to do, more than just that small number of people who think that, who find the politics aspect of it to be something that's worth pursuing for them, if they want it to be a general thing that a lot of people want to participate in seriously, well, you know what? I'm going to shut my, I don't want to say I'm going to shut my mouth. I don't know how many people participate in it seriously. Let me stick with my own anecdotal thing. I have, in my many years of playing this game, I haven't touched Powerplay except for once to get the prismatic shield. So you can play this game and never give Powerplay a second thought. And if they want it to be something that's truly meaningful, they need to do something that pulls people like me into the fold, makes us really want to participate in it, make it have rewards that pull us out of the things that we typically do to actually go and try to do these things. And, you know, for the most part, they have some things in there where you might step into it just to get that one thing, but there's no part of Powerplay, at least as far as I'm aware, that provides you with any long-term reason to do it other than I just want to have my corporations, or what are they called in this one? I don't even remember what they're called. Your group's name on a system or whatever. So I don't know. Powerplay is not something that absolutely interests me unless I start hearing some things about it that makes it worth putting some real time into.
All in all, it sounds like a big change from where Powerplay is today. Of course, it's still all in very early days. Right now, it's impossible to tell the impact this update will have on the game as a whole. And I mean that both in terms of how it will impact the fundamental nature of Elite,
yeah, we don't have enough information yet,
in terms of the impact it might have on the player base.
Based off of the history, I'm going to hold my breath on that one because, you know, there's been a lot of big promises that didn't turn out.
Be very good for player retention. After all, people who are already interested in and actively participating in Powerplay are going to be quite happy with the way things are going.
Exactly.
But the question still remains as to whether or not Powerplay 2 will be of broad enough appeal to A, bring back a significant number of players, or B, bring in new players. My guess is that it will be fairly good for player retention, or very good. That is, it will help keep existing players around. But it will also have less of an impact on bringing back old players and bringing in new players.
And I agree with that completely. People who are already into that style of game mechanic and they're in it because of the mechanic and not because of any other reason, they're obviously going to be happy to get an update to whatever it is that provides for them. But for people like me who have very little interest in politics in the game, or things along that kind of a nature, it has absolutely zero appeal to me if there's not some kind of meaningful reward or progression or something that I'm personally going to get out of that. And I think most people probably feel that way about it.
After all, Powerplay 2 is a fairly deep part of Elite, and to some degree it is arcane, although the overhaul is aiming to try and fix that. It's generally not a part of the game that casual players will.
I've been playing this game for years and years, and I still don't really know anything about it. And unless you're willing to sit down and go research the different factions and how Powerplay works and all that stuff, it's one of those things that's not intuitive. You can't just pick it up and start going with it. You need to understand what you're doing and how it works. And
or even new players will jump in on immediately and want to tackle. Likewise, for players who enjoyed trading, exploration, engineering and upgrades, it's also likely not to be of huge appeal. Or at least, if it is, then maybe only tangentially. After all, it is possible to go out and do a mission or two and have that impact Powerplay, and then perhaps see some of the repercussions of that. But overall, it does lead me to wonder what comes next for Elite. Of course, it's very early days right now, and not everyone is going to appreciate me posing this question. I mean, Powerplay 2 is likely still a few months away, and here I am already asking what will come next, or if Powerplay 2 is even going to be enough.
I think that's a fair question to ask at any point during the development process. The thing we all have to keep in mind is that even if you like the game and you come back to it like I do, you still have to be realistic about your expectations, and asking the question of, is this going to actually make any kind of a difference, is a reasonable thing to ask given the way Odyssey ended up happening, and just the general approach that the developer takes to the game in general. There's a lot of us that don't like their mentality when it comes to various different things, such as the grindy way in which they force you to do things. And, so when you have a developer that is at odds with a significant portion of its own community, you never know how the things that they do are going to affect things. I disagree with their philosophy, but it's their game. They can do what they want with it. We just have to understand the reality that, the decisions that they make are going to rub some people the right way, and it's going to really irritate other people. And that's just kind of the way that it works. So any kind of question where you're asking the future of the game, especially with the ups and downs that the game has had recently, is pretty reasonable as far as I'm concerned.
I get it. It's a question that on the surface might feel entitled, inflammatory, or perhaps a little egregious. But in the end, it's a question that comes from a place of looking towards the future of Elite, of wanting to see the game continue to evolve, grow, develop and improve. What's also funny is,
I have to say that as some of the various space games that are out there, over the years, I've tried Star Citizen. I dived into No Man's Sky a couple of times, and it was just, I couldn't get into it. It was overly complicated, and they kind of front-loaded all of that, and it just kind of turned me off. But I've watched other videos of other people playing it, and then just various other games that I've seen. Of all the different games that I've seen, this one is the one that speaks to me the best. And it's because the ship models are done in a way that appeals to me visually. Especially the in-system warp that happens is something that feels like it's something that could be real in real life. And, as much as I'm not a big fan of the jumping system, and I've spoken ad nauseum to that in the Elite series, this game is the one that has the most potential in my mind, and they just won't do it. There's a lot of things that they could do to make the game way, way better than it is, and it could blow away everything else if they would just change their stance and direction on some things. And not even just the things that I'm not trying to say that my opinions on things are what they should change, but there's just a lot of things that they could change, and some, I don't have any examples off the top of my head right now, but I think some fundamental changes to the way that the game runs and, their vision for the future. Me personally, this is just my opinion, this game is the best one out there from a potential standpoint, because I think that while Star Citizen has a much higher individual quality, The problem with it is that when you start, there's like a spectrum, right? You can have quality on one end and you can have quantity on the other end, and Star Citizen goes way too far into the quality side of it at the cost of quantity. So while Elite Dangerous is 1,000,000 miles wide and an inch deep, Star Citizen is 20 feet deep and not very wide, at least from what I've seen over the years and jumped in every once in a while. So I just, I don't want to say I'm a fanboy of the game, because I've definitely walked away from it several times just because I get bored with it. But it is the space game that I return to every time I want to play a space game, because it just feels so real to me in comparison to some of the other stuff that's out there.
And I know there will also be others out there that will view me as far too much of a fanboy simply for looking towards the game's future. It is what it is.
Well, the problem is that everybody has an opinion and most of them stink. So, number one, there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy. If you like the game, if you like the property, and you want to be a fanboy about it, there's nothing wrong with that. Only people who are jaded and bitter have problems with people being fanboys about things. But even then, even if you're not a fanboy, some people are just going to say that because they have nothing better to do than to complain about you.
Some people like it or they don't. My view has always been on the future of the game, both long-term and short-term. So, with that in mind, do I feel Powerplay 2 is enough for Elite? Is it a significant enough of a change? Is it something that Elite vitally needs? Well, the blunt answer to all of that, is no, it's not enough. Far from it. But I don't say that in a negative way. I'm not saying that Powerplay 2 is a bad move. I'm simply saying that after Powerplay 2, I feel there should be another update that, in the same manner, revisits and refreshes another part of Elite.
So here's my issue with that. I don't want to say that statement, but just in my mind, you got to prioritize things. And Powerplay, while I'm sure it's probably low-hanging fruit for them as far as, whatever the code is. It's probably the easiest thing for them to change behind the scenes, to make changes to in a way that feels meaningful. I'd be curious to know. I don't know. I don't have access to any information, but how many people actually interact with Powerplay on a meaningful basis? What percentage of the player base does that? At least for me, unless they announce something that makes it very clear that there's a serious benefit to me playing or doing any of the Powerplay stuff, as far as I'm concerned, that's a complete waste of time and effort and money and all of that stuff that they're putting into it. And if enough of the player base feels that way about it, and like I said, I don't know. I don't have any metrics I can go look at to find out, how many people participate in that. I'm just saying that, in general, unless there is enough of a portion of the player base that cares about stuff like Powerplay, it could potentially be a complete waste of time. They could be working on other things that people have been asking for many years. Things that they promised since the very beginning, like ship interiors.
I feel that such a process would go a long way to help Elite continue to grow and change. It's a case of not resting on laurels, but moving forward and expanding. And I'm sure
what laurels? I think they've had a lot of egg on their face in the last few years, and announcing some changes and releasing a couple of things, that doesn't put you back up in the laurels category. Like, I'm not criticizing him for what he's saying necessarily. I'm just saying that I don't think they have any laurels to stand on right now. Odyssey was a big problem that they ended up having to dig themselves out of, and there's still a lot of things about it that many of us have an issue with. I know a lot of people, myself included, really don't like the fact that VR was not included in Odyssey. It's really annoying to have a VR headset and you can use it in every other aspect of the game, but then it pops into first person running around mode, and now you might as well not be wearing a headset. That's a problem for me. So they have a lot of issues. I don't know that I'd throw the word laurels around for that.
Sure, if Frontier are planning this, then really they would be sitting around and discussing this right now, rather than waiting to look at it next year or the year after. For me, obviously,
okay, maybe he was talking about the Thargoid stuff that was really started hitting heavy last year. Again, that just depends on what kind of a player that you are. I didn't do any Thargoid stuff. I have no interest in it. The combat in this game is repetitive to the point it's just as repetitive to me anyway as mining and exploration and trade and all of that other stuff. You pop in, you figure out what sequence of movements works best for your ship, and that's what you do, and you just fight things over and over again. I'm sure the PvP part of it is probably a lot more difficult, but I've never really been into PvP as a concept anyway, so I'm here to play a game, not play against other people. A lot of people are going to disagree with that, especially if you're into PvP, but that's just not something I'm into. So, and I'm just, I'm not that good at combat anyway. So it's just never been something I focused on. Obviously, the people who are interested in the combat portion of things are going to have a different opinion about that, and that's fine. But, the Thargoid stuff is just... It wasn't enticing enough to me to go through the grind that I would need to go through to, be competitive with that. And I had other areas that I wanted to focus on. So, again, I don't say that to mean that the Thargoid stuff is completely useless. I'm just pointing out again that different portions of the community are gonna place a different weight on that, and that's just kind of the way that it is.
Well, for most of you, I guess, watching would guess that I would love to see some big changes to exploration. This is something that's always been the most interesting to me when it comes to Elite.
Oh my God,
also,
yes.
There are many other parts of the game that could also do with a refresh.
I understand. I think I understand. There are other parts of the game that could do with a refit, and while I understand that Elite Dangerous is, you think Elite Dangerous and you think, space fighter. I get that, but most of us pop into space because we want to see cool stuff. That's why we're interested in space in the first place. We want to go explore. We want to go see things. We want to have meaningful interactions with the environment around us when we go to see a planet or we go to see a star system or we go to see whatever. There's a reason why some of the best images and videos and things that you see have nothing to do with combat. They have to do with really cool scenery or really cool things that are floating out in space or whatever else. And, I think there's a large portion of the community that feels pretty butthurt about the fact that exploration has still to this day hasn't been given enough attention to the point where it feels like it's a super meaningful it's a super meaningful pathway of getting things done in the game. You get a lot of money out of exobiology, but at the same time, when are we going to get full atmospheres? When are we going to get animals? When are we going to get, all of the stuff that's going to make exploration seriously worth it? And it's still fun to fly around and land on planets and stuff like that, but it needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of work.
Engineering is clearly the most glaring example. It needs not only a rebalance, but also perhaps a new implementation. Combat, in some ways, is in a good place right now. However, some years back...
I'm not going to even touch engineering. We all know how that is.
...of rebalancing ships and other aspects of the game. So it's definitely something that is much needed at this point, and all the more...
I'm going to take a different take on the whole rebalancing thing. I don't know that balancing in combat needs to be a thing. But again, like I said, I don't really pay much attention to the fighting aspect of things. In reality, there's no such thing as balance. There is, one group of people has, I live in a country that's able to dominate the world right now because we have the best technology, and that's just the way that it is. So in my mind, from a logical perspective, balance doesn't mean anything. I get the fact that it's a video game and different rules apply. But if I have to choose between them balancing combat or adding or super effective changes to things like exploration and stuff like that, I'd much rather they focus on that. But again, that's a selfish point of view, so take that with a grain of salt.
More so due to the arrival of new ships. Trading, meanwhile, could do with some work. I've always been, keen to see a bit more of an active and living economy. Almost currently it is.
All right, I'm gonna set aside the economy aspect of it, and I'm gonna just straight up say that one of the most egregious problems that this game has is that they don't have an in-game version of Inara or whatever it is that the fact that we have to go to third-party websites to get information on what's for sale, where I could go, good routes of things that I could do. Like the fact that you have to do that is, I think that's a major issue that needs to be resolved to make the trading part of this game much more enjoyable. I understand that from a certain point of view, it feels like nerfing the game, but it's already being done anyway. So why are you forcing me to go to a website outside of the game? Give me the tools in the game that are already available outside of the game so I can just use your interface and feel more immersed and not feel like I'm having to go back into the real world to get the information I need to make smart decisions about what I'm going to buy and where I'm going to take it. I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that falls in line with a lot of the suggestions that I've made about different ways that mechanics can be changed to make the game more enjoyable while not taking away from the intended purpose of the game.
It's simulated to an extent, it still feels far from living and reactive. Ultimately then, there's a lot of places that it could go in the future. Powerplay 2 is a great start, but it isn't enough. Bottom line, it's never enough when it comes to a live service game. So this isn't a complaint directed specifically at Elite, but rather it is just a critique and, well, just the very nature of live services. By their very nature, they invite continuous and never-ending updates, new content, refreshes and changes. A game that evolves and changes is a game that continues to thrive, and 2024 has been a great start for that for Elite Dangerous. Let's hope that it continues.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about Kerbal Space Program too.
Like to Frontier to focus on next, if indeed they will do such a thing. What areas of the game would you like to see revisited and refreshed in the future? Let me know below. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time, and take care.
All right, yeah, so obviously for me, exploration is going to be the one that I prioritize because it's the one that I enjoy the most. I'm a Star Trek nerd, and that was all about exploration. Yeah, there was some combat, but that was secondary to strange new worlds. And I would really love it if Elite would move more in the direction of allowing those of us who want to explore the galaxy to have a bit more of a validated experience with that. But yeah. Powerplay means absolutely zero to me as it existed before, and unless they bring it out in a way that's going to significantly increase the draw for people like me, it's going to continue to only be a niche thing that people, well, again, I keep using niche and I keep trying to downplay the number of people that do it. I don't know. It might be a majority of the population or a majority of the gamers that play this game participated. I kind of doubt it, but I need to stop assuming that they're a minority. They might be a majority, but at least for people like me, it's not going to mean anything unless there is, unless they give us serious incentives outside of the odd item here or there to participate in it. So yeah, that's all I really had to say about the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what I had to say. Be sure to click that like button and all of that stuff. Do the cool algorithm stuff. And if you have any other videos that you would like me to cover, because you got something out of this and you like my perspective on another one, be sure to leave a link down in the comments or at least reference it, and I'll probably try to go check it out. So thank you very much for watching. Be sure to come back for the next one, and I'll see you then.